Kunal, good afternoon. You're watching Closing Trades on 80 now. I'm Anisha Jain. With me is Aisha Faridi. And for now, the market is in the red, but not as much as we started the day with. There is a 50-point cut as far as Nifty is concerned, even though the broader markets is actually faring a lot better. So the mid-cap and the small-cap indices were actually holding on to a bit of a green the last time I checked. The small-cap index was up over 1%, and that continues to be the case right now. Bank Nifty too has managed to perk up a bit, so it's just mildly in the green right now, holding up its head above the water. In terms of the individual movers, it's Titan, which is up a good 3% right now. LTI Mindtree is also doing quite well. Hero MotoCorp, Wipro, these are some of the other names that we're watching out for on the upside. On the losing side, Nestle is under pressure, Britannia, Cipla. These are the other losers, but of course a lot of headlines coming in from the money market as well as the commodities world as well, with the crude prices being below the mark of $75 to the barrel, rupee hitting a record low. So a lot of talking points right now in the markets.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Lot of talking points. Crude definitely is the big headline and continues to be so. In fact, we'll get on board our chartist as well, because Kunal believes that we could slip as low as sub 70 as well. We'll talk to him about this in greater detail. But for now, let's just discuss some of the stocks. And before anything else, it's important to map how the global markets have been up to. Because while Europe has started off on a very tentative, quiet note ahead of the US jobs data, it's absolutely flat across the screen. Mildly soft for CAC, that's definitely the one which is underperforming, but the rest of the markets are flat with a marginal positive bias so far at least. For Asia, of course, it was a 1% cut for Japan. Hong Kong was flattish, Shanghai just about flattish with a marginal upside. That's how it's traded. But the good news is that the US futures for now at least are indicating some amount of stability. After being down for 2 straight days, you're finally seeing some recovery come by, flattish with a marginal positive bias. That's how US futures are trailing right now. Talk about oil, which Anisha just highlighted, and currently you've got a 73.24 print coming in on the Brent. So kind of steady. Investors are weighing in on the weak demand, definitely the potential delay as well to OPEC plus output hike. That also could be definitely one trigger. But, talking about individual stocks, it's Zomato, which has been in focus today after the JP Morgan note coming in. It's the target price uptick, which definitely is something which is eye-popping. 340 all the way from current 208 is the upgrade coming in. They're saying that, they're leading rapid retail consumer transformation, convenience, selection-focused QCOM is what they're stepping into. And clearly, they're dominating the street right now. 4% higher for Zomato as we speak right now. They've upped the forecast for FY25 to 27 by a good 15 to 41%, no less. There's Chola Finance as well. They've got a buy initiation by Goldman Sachs, target of 1786. They're saying that the market share continues to gain amidst the retail upcycle and that they do expect the EPS CAGR of 33% over FY24 to 27. So definitely seeing good amount of growth coming in there. And for Syngene as well, that's the other stock in focus this afternoon. DAM Capital says that the Biosecure Act can actually come through by early next month, and that definitely is going to act as a big fillip. But that's that. The index definitely has cooled off and given up its earlier gains. We're lying absolutely flattened right now as we speak. But then again, Kunal, it's really the same kind of move that you had all through last week. We traded volatile, but in a very, very narrow band. And that's the story today too.
Yeah, so we are holding on to the support. So that's the good part about this consolidation which you're seeing for the indices. But yeah, on the other hand, I think the momentum is lacking for the index, because after such a kind of a strong recovery in the last 2 days, particularly from yesterday's low for the indices, I think we've not seen any major follow through price action up move for the index. So we are lacking momentum, and that's something which we've been seeing over the last 10-15 days of the first phase of the rally of for the indices. But then I think the global markets are where the direction is generally getting gauged into. So over the last 2-3 days, we've seen some volatility coming back into the global indices. Maybe that could be one of the reasons why the indices are getting into a bit of a range bound. But the action is more towards the broader markets as well as the tier 2 large cap names, because there are a lot many stocks which on technical charts which have given breakout, and they are the ones which are seeing follow through price action. And that generally happens when the market sentiment is a lot more positive, even though the indices are trading into a range.
Okay, yes, the indices are trading in a range, but let's see where we move from here on as well. Sandeep Sabharwal is also joining us on the show right now. Sandeep, one segment which is catching. Okay, he'll be joining us shortly. But Nuresh, one space which has been which has been, getting a lot of attention of late is the pharma sector and the kind of up move that we are seeing. And if I have it right, the Nifty Pharma Index is sitting at a record high level. What within pharma is still a buy?
So the whole pharma space has been breaking out one by one. So the fresh breakouts today are Laurus Labs, which has broken out into a new 52-week high. Then you have Syngene and Biocon, which broke out yesterday. Then there are smaller names which have been breaking out for quite some time. So something like a Copran or various other names. The bias is positive across the board. In the large cap space, a Cipla looks interesting, which has broken out and sustaining well. But the mid cap and the small cap pharma are doing really strong moves. So the leadership is there. Laurus, Biocon, Syngene could be an interesting basket.
Okay, leadership in pharma, Laurus Labs, Biocon, Syngene, they're all holding up very, very smartly. But Kunal, the big trigger, right? Crude prices. Let's just try and understand, because you believe that we could even slip sub the 70 mark, right?
Yeah, so 70 is the breakdown point for crude prices. What we've seen over the last few months and over the last 1.5 odd year is a very gradual correction for crude prices from 127, somewhere in 2022-23. From there, crude prices have gone to a formation of a lower top. Now we are at a very critical juncture in terms of the crude prices, where in the charts we are on the verge of a breakdown of a major support trend line. That support trend line is around the 70 mark. Crude, is trading. Brent crude is trading closer to 70 to 73 dollars per barrel, which means we are very close towards the critical support point for crude prices. And if that break happens for Brent crude, where it manages to break below the 70 mark, it could result into the asset going into at least another 6 to 9 months of a corrective phase. That could probably lead to the asset correcting by at least another 10% to 15% further, which means I'm expecting the crude prices to come back towards 60 to 65 dollars per barrel mark, provided it breaks below the 70 levels.
Okay, point taken. The other segment today doing quite okay is the entire auto pack, and especially names like Bosch, etc. were perking up quite nicely. There were a lot of these auto OEMs, the likes of Craftsman Automation, etc., which were also perking up a bit. Bosch right now is up 4%, as I talked about. What's the view on autos, Nuresh, if you have a favorite there?
So in terms of autos, a fresh breakout in the last few sessions has been Hero MotoCorp, which went through a drift from 58, 5900 all the way to 5100, and has now shown good momentum and is in touching distance of making a new all-time high. Bosch is another name which looks interesting, that went through a consolidation sideways for the last many months. Today is our first price volume uptake. That looks promising. Bajaj Auto has already moved up quite a bit, so would be a little wary over Bajaj Auto and TVS Motors. But at current levels, Hero MotoCorp and Bosch look interesting in the market.
Since we're talking about the auto sector, here are the commentary coming in from FADA as well, because they just came out with their numbers for the month gone by, and they were a bit worried about the kind of inventory which is sitting in the system and perhaps the discounting that might happen during the festival season. Here are a slice of that conversation.
See, we put a lot of work forward for in the month of July, August. We wrote to SIAM also. And in spite of all our efforts, the inventory level continues to go up. So it has reached a precarious level of almost paid up days reaching 70 to 74 days. The stock level reaching close to 7,70,000 vehicles, worth around 75,000 crore, 80,000 crore worth of vehicle with the dealers. So I do understand that wholesales are important, but every wholesale should be aligned with that particular OEM's retail. If the retails are going down, you cannot have more wholesales than the retail. And when the dealerships are already, their businesses have been hampered because of high stock levels. So I think the OEMs need to realign their functions, their goals, their aspiration to reach a higher percentage of market share in terms of retail. And retail is very much reflected by Vahan data. We need to stick by that, and accordingly, the dispatches should be made. A dealer losing money or paying all his margin to the bank will only make the dealer unhealthy. And in a few, on a long-term basis, probably the dealer will go bust. And
Okay, that's the word coming in on autos. In the meantime, just checking in on what the market is up to. PVR Inox, that spiked up a good 4.25% in trade. There's, of course, Bosch, ACC, Chola Finance, and then Syngene. It's an interesting mix of stocks out there. You can't really draw up any trend. Having said that, Hero MotoCorp, for a third consecutive day now, and even on the days that the market has fallen, this stock has been very resilient today as well. It's holding up by about a good 1%. Let's take that conversation forward. Sandeep Sabharwal on the show then. Sandeep, hi, afternoon. What is it that you're making of the resilience that one is seeing from the two-wheeler pack, especially at a time when passenger vehicles definitely are seeing a bit of a slowdown?
Yeah, so two-wheeler dispatch numbers from the auto companies are not so bad as compared to the four-wheelers. Now, we do not know what the actual picture at the retail level in terms of sales is. So, like the interview which was going on, so the auto dealers seem to be indicating inventory levels which are much higher than what the companies themselves are indicating. For example, I think Maruti indicated that inventory level could be around 36 days, whereas the statement of this gentleman was that it could be as high as 70 days. So I think we need clarity on that, because if inventory levels are so high, then we could have some issues with the auto sector going forward.
And we're just trying to decode whether those issues are going to be real or not, because that's been the case with a couple of other industries as well, and especially ahead of festive season, one needs to be watchful of that. In fact, in terms of the other sectors right now, IT is also doing okay, and Zomato is the other one which is actually up almost 5% in the trading session after it got a thumbs up from JP Morgan. Sandeep, what's the view on Zomato at $250 a piece? Should one buy afresh?
I would think a large part of the positives are factored in at this price at least. So I think from here, for the stock to move up from here, the growth needs to be higher than what the management has projected, and margin picture has to also improve. So until that happens, I think with the kind of move that Zomato's had from 50 levels to 250, it largely factors in all near-term positives.
Okay, factors all the near-term positives. That's the view coming in on Zomato right now. Let's do one thing. Let's take a short break on the show. When we come back, we'll discuss what's happening in the markets, put the spotlight on the commentary coming in from a couple of important ministries as well.
Back with closing trades right here on ET now. Flattened out from the top of the day. That's where the Nifty picture is right now. Look at the broader markets. That is at least one pocket where you're still maintaining that heads up with advances, at least account for about 111 to about 74 to the declines. Some of the pharma names are the ones which are weighing heavy today. Cipla, DRL in the red. Consumption names like Britannia, Nestle as well in the red as we speak. L&T has been down today. Bajaj Finance has also been lower. Reliance down about 0.5%, and Maruti as well weighing heavy on the markets today. On the flip side, and this is just the large cap picture that I'm talking about, Titan is the one which has sprung up about 3%. LTIM has been holding out very smartly, 1.25% today. We just flagged off the move on Hero MotoCorp. That continues to hold out. BPCL is also seeing a further fillip, about a 1% uptick coming in there. Wipro, Tata Steel, Hindalco, ITC, they're all holding out in the green at least so far. But Sandeep, just want to pick up on the point that, you were alluding to just the other day, that the government is finally doing the right thing. And, this is in context to the GIC REOFS. Although, there are reports which are indicating that those bids worth about 2,300 crore rupees so far, the demand is only half of the total issue size. Just wanted to understand how you're reading into the piece.
Yeah, so I think that's not a fancied stock simply because of the fact that it's also not performed. But I think the government has the opportunity for divestment into many defense companies like even the power financiers, railway stocks. Many of these stocks have grown multifold. So I think there's less interest in this stock, but I'm sure that if they go and offer do OFS in many other stocks, then I think there'll be more interest.
So that's the view coming in. But just pull up the stock of Easy Trip Planners. That stock has managed to surge 12% after the company has announced that they're looking at diversifying into the business of EV buses. So interesting at that, a bit unrelated and kind of diversified, but for now the street is liking it. Kunal, would you want to comment on this one? Easy Trip Planners and Gujarat Fluoro, if you have a view on that?
So Easy Trip, I don't track, I'll skip that. But Gujarat Fluoro is something which is looking attractive because, the stock today has confirmed a breakout of its 200 DMA. So it's a classic price volume breakout, a very similar kind of a, price level where the stock has been testing over the last many months. I think over the last 3-4 months, the stock has been testing this 3500, 3550 mark. So I believe after today's volume move, the stock could probably eventually break out this 3600 congestion. And if that happens, it could be almost a 300 point breakout of a consolidation, which means on the higher side, we could be looking at 3800 as a fresh target for Gujarat Fluoro.
Okay, that's some of the buzzers in trade right now. But in the meantime, US lawmakers are due to vote on a legislation that could actually limit a few Chinese biotech companies and how they operate in the country. So what is US Biosecure law and how is its implementation going to impact some of the Indian pharma players? Shrishti is here with that explanation.
Well, certainly, we are seeing that the US government is clearly working on to reduce the dependence of import of some of the supplies for the pharma industry coming in from China, and they're already working on an act which is called the US Biosecure Act. And the key development to note is whether or not in the times ahead there's a likelihood of the Biosecure Act getting passed into the law, and the Republican Congressional Office expects the House votes on Biosecure Act on 9th of September, wherein the measures including barring federal contracts from doing business with 5 Chinese biotechnology firms have already been listed. And going ahead, the industry experts do believe that it can have a whole host of impact from all the CDMO suppliers as well as on the whole pharma industry as well, because as we know that the whole world is actually dependent on China for the supply of the key raw materials, some of the key raw materials for the pharma industry specifically. And if this transition goes through, if the law get into the works, then definitely this will impact the industry on a whole. But for this particular law to get passed, because of that there were some concerns including the quality control, supply chain security as well as national security, why the government actually thought on working on such measures. But analysts also believe that if this geographical expansion or rather the transition takes place, then India stands out as an opportunity. The players are expected to benefit in the long run, because they do believe that the proposed bill can provide an impetus to the non-Chinese CDMO players. A couple of companies have already highlighted that they are witnessing some of the fresh inquiries, increased momentum in the inquiries, new plant visits as well as even if the bill is shelved, then there's an indirect positive ramification for the Indian CDMO players. Obviously, this might not happen overnight. It will be a transition process, but in the long run, a lot of companies have already started looking to diversify, and this China Plus One policy could work well for the Indian CDMO players. Some of the companies like Syngene, Divi's Lab, Loris Lab, Newland Lab and even Piramal Pharma are expected to be key beneficiaries of the same.
Okay, point taken. So we are watching out for some of those names and definitely those stocks on our radar. Let's see whether that law does get passed or not, and what impact and business does it bring to the companies back home or not. In the meantime, just taking stock of some other companies as well. UTI AMC, of course, the story that ET now broke for you, that perhaps Tata's could be the one looking at picking up some stake in UTI AMC. Since that day, that stock has been fairly active. Today as well, it's up almost 5% in the trading session. Chola Financial Holdings is reacting to the latest initiation coming in from Goldman Sachs, wherein they are saying that this business is ripe for a bit of a re-rating, and ditto can be said for AU Small Finance Bank as well. In fact, on a couple of these financials, Sandeep, what's your view if you track Chola Financials or AU Small Finance Bank closely?
Not really, none of these two.
Okay, Nuresh, do you look at either?
So looking at Chola Finance, that's the one which has been a strong performer over the last 1 year in the whole basket as such. So the stock has been continuously making higher tops and higher bottoms. Fresh highs also done recently above the 1450 mark. The next target for the stock would be closer to 1650 levels. looking at the previous moves. So bias positive on the stock and remains a buy on dips.
Okay, point taken. So that's a view on a couple of these stocks. But Shrishti is still with us. So let me ask her about Syngene as well, because that stock was up almost 5% earlier, has cooled off a bit, but seems like DAM Capital has met the management and has come out with some fresh updates, Shrishti.
Certainly, that's the key trigger of the Biosecure Act as well, because the DAM Capital had a meeting with Syngene where they say that the Biosecure Act can come through by the early next month as well, and the Indian companies are likely to benefit for the same. The maximum benefit for the Indian companies may likely be seen in the small molecule research segment, and that's the business area of Syngene. What they are saying that this transition could take for 7 to 8 years, because innovators have been given a deadline that in the next 7 to 8 years there should be a gradual shifts from the suppliers that are dependent coming from the China, as well as for now they do maintain their FY25 guidance for now, but they do expect a pickup in the revenues in the second half of the financial year, and they are hopeful that the funding of the biotech environment that was a little bit suppressed in the US markets will also recover, and on the back of that Syngene is in focus. But for now the key trigger seems to be like the Biosecure Act getting passed into the law. That is something that we are watching out for, but Syngene is definitely excited regarding that.
Yeah, that sure is. Sandeep, have you been tracking this story at all? I know the erstwhile favorites are the likes of Sun Pharma and DRL, but what's the pharma pack looking like? Any new additions that you may have made?
Not really, but I think the developments could help many of these companies which Shrishti was talking about, but I'm not tracking them closely. And the second part, which is also very important, is that these are very long gestation things. So even if something happens, the actual supplies from any new initiative could be maybe after 3 to 5 years. So I think that's what at least people should keep in mind before jumping into invest.
Okay, Sandeep, stay with us. Got a couple of questions more for you. We're going to take a very quick break on that note. Come right back. We'll continue our market discussion.
Welcome back. Well, a lot of stocks buzzing around from the broader markets. Maybe Nippon Life AMC is something that you should pull up. UTI AMC has been doing well. 361 has also managed to see a bit of a perk up. And BSE as well is up almost in the last few minutes and very close to the highest point of the trading session. Let me ask that question to Kunal now. Kunal, some of these financial markets ancillaries, BSE, the AMCs of the world, 361, would you be a buyer in any of the names?
Yeah, I think so. The AMC stocks, HDFC AMC, something looking attractive. Nippon Asset Management, that's NAM India. That's a chart which has been looking very attractive. UTI AMC, if I'm not wrong, the stock has confirmed a fresh high for itself, breaking past about the previous levels of 1175, 1180. So that's a stock which is looking attractive. From the exchanges stock, I think MCX was one of the first ones to get into a very big uptrend mode. The stock had a huge resistance at the 4,000 mark. It's crossed those 4,000 levels, went about 5,000 mark, and I think it's somewhere close to 5,200 to 50 levels the last I had seen. So the stock has been doing pretty well. BSE is something which has been going through a corrective phase over the last 2-3 months. So there was this phase where I think BSE corrected by 30% in the last 3 months or so, had come back towards its 200 moving average or slightly below those levels. But the stock has now tried to get into a recovery. It's completed a 50% retracement of the correction which the stock had shown over the last 3-4 months. So which means that the stock has completed a corrective wave, is now looking attractive for a potential retest of the previous highs, which could be at 3,000, 3,300 plus levels.
That's some solid gains on the sort of stock market ancillaries, if you will. Varun Sabu too joins in on the show. But Sandeep, any of these stocks related to stock markets that you like, or are you not buying anything in the markets right now?
So these stock market related stocks obviously have their own cyclicality. So right now, because the markets are doing well, so many of these stocks directionally also doing well. But I think if you need to choose among them, the annuity businesses are the AMC stocks. So I think for people who want to hold for the long term, the AMC stocks are something which they can look at on corrections.
Okay, point taken. So that's a view on some of these ancillaries right now. What else is buzzing in the market right now? Well, on the losing side, Marico is a bit under pressure, and then some of these other pharma names like Global Health and MedPlus Health is also down. OMCs as a pack have done very well for themselves this year. But Sandeep, is there more steam to go? Would you buy afresh in some of the OMC names?
OMCs are tough to invest in because of the fact that we don't know what the government will do on the fuel pricing. In the run up to the elections, state elections, if there are some fuel price cuts, then those can directly hit the margins of these companies. If not, I think the margins could expand substantially. So I think it depends on what the government decides to do, and I find it very tough to predict.
Indeed. Okay, Sandeep, we'll let you go on that note. Thanks as always for taking the time out and joining in. Varun, hi, afternoon. Where is it that you stand when it comes to the crude sensitives? We've seen quite a bit of move in the paints, some of the tire names, OMCs as well. Not quite the same for an ONGC or an Oil India, however. But do you sense that this is a meaty move and could sustain?
Yeah, so first of all, thanks again now for inviting us on this show. When it comes to the crude sensitive, I think number one, we as a house, we have a view that we are negative on crude. We think that crude prices will soften further. So I think clearly these will continue to rally, be it the OMCs, be it paints, be it anything related to this, right? So I am pretty much excited about the opportunity which this is providing. And one thing you have to remember, right? Everything is falling in place for India as a market. We are extremely dependent on crude as such also as an economy. So this helps us further on an overall basis also. So this helps the overall market as well.
So that's a view on OMCs. Yes, they have run up quite a bit. But the entire EV plays, those seem to be doing quite well as well. Any other theme or any other stocks within that theme, Varun, that you think is still undiscovered or underappreciated?
You're trying to say on EV or on the oil?
Yes.
Which one are you
The
talking
entire
about?
ancillaries, right from the battery makers to the OEMs to the entire ecosystem of EVs.
Right. So what is happening is that you're seeing a big shift happening now because you saw OEMs doing exceptionally well for the last 2-3 years in four-wheelers, and now two-wheelers is doing very well. So obviously ancillaries were the next best bet to take, which people went into. So there has been a decent enough rally in ancillaries also. Honestly, as an overall theme, we are not too bullish right now on autos overall. If anything, we'll be bullish on autos. It'll be to an extent on two-wheelers, which are still doing well, and we expect that run to continue, and to an extent on CVs probably.
You're not too positive on OMCs, you're not too positive on other autos as well. I will ask you what you're positive on. But before that, a quick look at the market, because there seems to be a bit of a selling pressure right now. Not by a whole lot, given that we were range bound, but we are at the lowest point of the trading session for what it's worth. So both the Nifty as well as the Sensex have seen a bit of a drawdown. I think Bank Nifty is holding okay. Let's pull up the mid cap and small cap as well and see what they have been up to in the last few minutes. So there has been a bit of a slip when it comes to the frontline index. Midcap 2 has a bit cooled off, and ditto perhaps can be said for small cap as well. What's the verdict on this one, Kunal? Is there anything to get worried about, the kind of fall that we are seeing right now in the markets, or par for the course?
Par for the course. I think the last 10-15 minutes of selling is because of Reliance Industries. That stock has caved into some selling. I think it's dropped some 20-25 points in the last few minutes, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're seeing the Nifty getting into that reversal kind of mode. But then nothing major in terms of the sign. This could be a one-off selling for the stock, unless the index breaks past above breaks past below the 25,000 mark. That I think would be the first spot of bother for traders who are holding on to long positions.
Okay, that's the take coming in on the markets, which definitely are seeing a bit of a shake-off, step in or creep in once again. In the meantime, some of the other stocks which have been in focus and we've been flagging off as well, definitely have been, the entire oil-sensitive pack. We've talked about as to how GICRE as well has seen some more softening come by. And then, of course, there's also been Alembic Pharma. They've received the US FDA approval for one of the tablets, and they have a cumulative total now of 214 ANDA approvals come by. There's also Glenmark Pharma, their US subsidiary, has signed a settlement agreement with the US Department of Justice where they're going to be paying about $25 million in 6 installments over next 5 years. And then, of course, Syngene, like we've been flagging off, the management meet with DAM Capital. The takeaways are extremely strong. The FY25 guidance for now, despite soft Q1, is something that they've managed to maintain, and they do expect a sharp recovery in the second half in terms of revenues as well as profitability. And the Biosecure Act, which is impending, if it comes through by early next month, that's going to act as a big fillip when it comes to Syngene. That stock, of course, holding up about 3.5% as we speak right now. But Varun, where within the market are you finding opportunities to invest in?
So I'll just come to that point before I just want to clarify. I mentioned I'm bearish on crude, not on OMCs. I'm actually positive on OMCs. I just wanted to clarify that. So I mentioned that crude, we think that will slide further from here, which will help all the oil sector. So that was number one. Second, when it comes to themes where I'm positive, I think the one stock which is also a theme in itself is PVR Inox. That's one of the ideas which still leaves massive upsides from here. One thing which we need to keep in mind, monopoly businesses should have their own multiple, and this is lying very cheap at 11 times EV EBITDA, right? I think there is a sharp rally which can happen in PVR Inox. Unfortunately, it's been made a content story. I think content over a period of time on a 12-month basis generally plays out to be very well when you compare it year on year, which will keep playing. But this is the only play which you have where people over the weekend have something to do, right? There's hardly any avenues of entertainment that people have in their life as such. So multiplex being one of them, and it's a clear leader in that. I think that's one which we like a lot. This is a very, very high conviction call for us. That is number one. Second, cement is a big theme that we are positive on. As per our channel checks, we have done quite extensive channel checks around it, and we are hearing that volumes have already started picking up, and one has to keep in mind that monsoons are not yet over. And also cost in terms of petcoke has been coming off, and crude has been falling further. So it will help petcoke prices further coming off. So that gives further fillip to this entire call on cement as well. So extremely positive on cement. And third, lastly, I like the rate sensitives. So in terms of rate sensitives, I'm extremely positive on the NBFCs particularly, where we are very, very positive on Chola, and we are very positive on Shriram Finance also from here. So yeah, net, this is what we are liking in the markets right now.
So cement, some of the rate sensitives, PVR Inox and OMCs, these are the spaces that you're liking right now, Varun. But what about Titan? That one is shining bright in the trading session. Any reason that it should?
Yes, absolutely. So Titan, again, we have done extensive channel checks, and what we understood from that is that there has been exceptional volumes that they have been seeing. There's been crazy demand on the ground post the budget when we had seen the change in duty, right? So that has helped all of these jewelry players, and they're doing very well, and that's reflecting in Titan. Plus, there were a lot of fears in the market recently about competition being coming up heavily in terms of in terms of Titan, and it might impact them, etc. But when you actually when you go and speak with dealers on the ground, and when you try to understand if anything is getting impacted from the worries which are there, the sense which we are getting is that people have a complete trust value for Titan, and that doesn't change. It might be more players also coming, but it carries its own brand image, and that will remain. So we are very positive on Titan also, and we see it as a great play from here as well.
In fact, Kunal, I want to get you in on the charts of PVR because that's given a breakout of 4% after I don't know how long. There are no movies as well, to be released this weekend, which you could link the outperformance to, which, like Varun was rightly saying, it's been linked as a very content stock. Good movies, the stock moves up the next day.
No, I think if I can relate, then after 3-2, the stock started to move. I don't know whether that was...
Okay, then. Well deserved then. I told you watch the movie, it's nice.
So yeah, I think on the charts, it's starting to look very attractive. The stock had lost its mojo for quite some time when it had corrected from, I think, 2000 or 2200. There was a high the stock had made towards the point very recently the stock made a low which was around 1270, 1275. Now, there are two important breakouts which the stock has shown on the short-term charts. One of them is that the stock breaking past about the 200 DMA, which is a very important breakout because the stock for the last 6 months, 9 months of that consistent selling had fallen below this critical average for quite some time. So it's been trading below this long-term moving average for quite some time. And the other important part is a golden crossover where you've seen the 50 DMA crossing above the 200 moving average. Now both of these put together are very strong technical indicators that a trend is now at place for PVR Inox. And what we could be looking out for is not just maybe a 10, a 30, 50 pointer pop into the stock price. We could be looking at the stock getting back into a trending mode and potentially retesting even the previous highs of 2000 plus.
Okay, point taken. Just wanted to pull up Reliance Industries because that bonus share issue is finally confirmed and announced. Remember, we already knew that the company is going to consider bonus in the ratio of 1:1. They've just informed the exchanges that they've gone ahead and approved that. And that's the latest that is coming in on Reliance Industries. Of course, that isn't the reason why the stock should be down, but just kind of wanted to put it on board that this is the latest that is coming up on Reliance Industries. I'm just looking for the record date if they've announced that. Can't seem to find that at the moment, but overall this is the latest that we are seeing on Reliance Industries, and that's the breaking news for you at the bottom of the screen as well. But shifting focus and getting you an ET Now exclusive, and this one is coming in from my colleague Prakash. We understand that the government is planning to build LNG bunkering facility at mega ports in the country. What does it mean and what exactly is going to be the implication? Prakash, fill us in with the latest.
Yes, an important development coming in as we are learning from our sources that the government is planning to build LNG bunkering facility at mega ports in the country. Sources are informing that the Oil Ministry and Shipping Ministry are working on this proposal. In fact, government has held 2 rounds of meeting with all these stakeholders. Along with that, Oil Ministry has instructed GAIL to prepare feasibility plan. Sources are informing that the government is likely to provide financial support to GAIL to develop bunkering facility at mega ports. And the idea is to supply LNG to international and domestic ships through this bunkering facility. Sources are also informing that the Oil Ministry is planning to get final cabinet approval on this proposal by December 2024. As per the initial proposal, what the sources are informing that the government is planning to build first LNG bunkering facility in Galathea Bay being developed under Sagarmala project. Around 58 projects worth rupees 7,600 crore in Andaman and Nicobar are being monitored under Sagarmala program, and the bunkering facility can also be developed at proposed bulk cargo transshipment hub in Atlanta Bay in Andaman and Nicobar. A very significant development coming in, and the sources are informing that the Oil Ministry has started formal discussion on this proposal.
Okay, that's an exclusive piece of info that we're picking up right now. Just looking at the markets, ACC, Syngene, of course, has climbed up even further now. Bosch, Chola Finance, these are all names which are looking good in the market right now. And of course, amidst the large caps, it's particularly Titan as well as LTIM. But, to talk about what's really going on with the defense pack, a lot of question marks being raised. We spoke with Sandeep Tandon earlier today because he, remember, was extremely bullish on the entire PSU pack and defense in particular. And he also voiced the same opinion that they have actually brought down their exposure in the defense pack. In fact, let's hear out his thoughts, and also on the private banks.
We have been quite, I will not say bearish, we have been cautious on the banking sector, particularly private sector, because we always believe that derating of the sector has begun globally. Okay, so when we talk about derating from a valuation perspective, because we believe banks are the byproduct of leverage economy, and leverage economy as a concept is going to deteriorate. Okay, and US is a very classic example. So multiple data points. Now you look at even India-centric, the credit growth has been marginally affected. If you look at one of the largest public sector bank actually talk about 14-15%. None of the private sector boards talks about this sort of growth coming. So there are challenges on the deposit front. Cost of actions or the cost of credit cost has also moved up. So if you really look at, it's a combination. We are from valuations are always absolute and relative. On absolute terms, people say obviously it is cheap. But looking at relative to other sectors or relative to the global market, I think the perspective is very different. So neither we are very aggressively bullish nor we are bearish. We think at appropriate opportunity in liquid names like private sector names, if I get opportunity in extreme inflection points, I will be buyer, and extreme inflection points, I will be seller. So they are no more a core holding for us. They are more of a tactical bets which we keep on playing. And HDFC was a classic example of that trade. We are in decisive bull run. Maybe this decade belongs to us, half century belongs to us. But you have to keep in mind that easy phase of bull run is over. But we are still in bull run and we are in difficult phase. This is a standard statement I generally give perspective to explain. Within the same logic, now get extended to other space. Let's say globally, we believe value as a thesis will be a biggest outlier, and Japan is the biggest value theme which has played out. And what is very important to understand that all PSUs are part of value thesis. So we remain constructive if I have a decadal view. But if I have a very short-term view or horizon, when we spotted that is a mild risk off period and I have to reconstruct, I will change. But if market corrects for whatever reason or becomes more volatile, which at least our volatility is very important, and if we do get some opportunity, we will participate in rebuilding these exposure. So from a structure perspective, longer term perspective, we remain very constructive. But from a very near term perspective, we are slightly cautious in this space because given the high beta and we have moved towards low beta.
Okay, so that's the latest commentary coming in from Sandeep Tandon as to what's happening with HDFC Bank and a few other important financial names as well. Time now to take the BTSC trades from our technical experts. Naresh, what's the buy today, sell tomorrow idea?
First is a buy on PVR Inox. The stock has given a good price volume breakout today, sustaining well. Stop loss at 1570, target price of 1620. Second is a buy on Indian Hotels, fresh 52-week high and all-time highs here. Stop loss at 667, target price of 685.
Okay, point taken. So that's the latest coming in as far as the BTSC trade from Naresh is concerned. Kunal, what about you?
So I'll go with the first one, buy on L&T Infotech Mindtree, LTIM. That's a chart which is looking attractive in terms of a potential breakout of the previous resistances around 6160, 6200 mark. So would suggest a target of 6300 for LTIM, and stop loss could be kept at 6050. And Samvardhan Motherson is also coming back into recovery above 190 plus mark. So would suggest that as a buy. Targets of 205, stop loss at 190.
Okay, point taken. In fact, the entire IT pack, let's pull up the Nifty IT and see what it's up to, because in my charts, it was showing that it was inching towards the highest point of the trading session. So yes, that's the big move right now in IT. LTI Mindtree is the top bet from Kunal, but Varun, any IT name that you like, mid cap, large cap?
See, that was one thing which we were very
Fine,
bullish
Varun.
on.
Just hold on that
Yeah.
thought. Maybe we'll reconnect that. Naresh, in the meantime, you want to give us your IT top pick?
So it continues to remain HCL Tech, which has given a breakout, looks promising, and Infosys on dips because that's the one which has a lot to catch up in terms of relative performance. Apart from that, would wait out for a dip given the rally in some of the mid-cap IT names.
Okay, IT definitely has sprung up. The index hasn't quite, still lying a little bit quiet, although that too has seen a smidge of a recovery. If we can just bring up the intraday graph, while we may be off the day's highs and have fallen 0.5%, but at least stabilized around the 25,150 odd level or so. IT definitely is catching up, not just LTIM, but a Wipro. You've got Infosys up 0.6%, HCL Technologies as well. All of these names holding out quite okay. In the meantime, let's just bring up some of the other liquid movers as well and show you what exactly is happening in the market. And on the laggard side, there are far too many. You've got a Chambal Fertilizers, Dixon, BEL, BHEL. That's where you're seeing some short build up. HAL as well is seeing some pressure. It's down about almost 1.5%. And then, of course, there are many other names like a Polycab, there's Godrej Properties, Godrej Consumer Products, India Cement, Britannia, Granules, a large bunch of stocks which are seeing some profit taking. But I think the trend is also, Kunal, then emerging for the PSU pack. I mean, a BEL, BHEL, HAL. Do you sense that the rally is going to abate a little bit when it comes to the PSU pack?
Yeah, there should be a lot of false starts for these stocks because, when these stocks are getting into a zone of consolidation, so, in a consolidation, there is lack of momentum for these stocks. And if there is a sudden price action jump for these stocks, then that gets sold into. So traders, they generally tend to lighten up the positions, look at the near-term resistances is the point where traders look at exiting fresh longs, or maybe try to create some fresh short-term short positions, and then look out for these stocks to come back to their previous support points. That's where the risk reward starts to originate to be a lot more better. So we've gone through the first phase of a price correction for many of these defense names, where the high beta ones, they've corrected by 30-35%, the large cap ones have corrected by 15% broadly, and now these stocks should go at least into another couple of months of sideways price consolidation. So would not be looking to venture into a buy unless these stocks come back into a retest of the previous support, where the risk reward would start to look a lot more lucrative.
Okay, that's the take on some of the defense names. But Varun, if we have you back with us, your view on the IT picks?
Yeah, hi, sorry. Just to mention, so if you remember in your show, I was consistently mentioning about IT being amongst our high conviction ideas for the last few months. But that I'm changing a bit now. I think there has been a substantial rally in IT pack. They are beneficiaries of rate cycle, and which has already played out in the stocks to quite an extent. I think the sector will go through consolidation. I'm not saying it will correct, but stocks would not do too much. If anyone has to buy anything here, should buy the biggest names in terms of BFSI exposure, where Emphasis stands as number one and second is LTI.
Okay, that's Varun's pick when it comes to the tech pack. In the meantime, still seeing some short covering on PVR Inox, on a Gujarat Gas, Exide Industries as well. Idea, where is that stock been up to? Because that's also seeing quite a decent move today. Almost a 2% bump up is what that stock has been seeing. And then Vedanta, which is also holding up about almost 1.6% as we speak right now. Let's get in some BTST trades as well then on that note. We just spoke about that, my apologies. Kunal, anything else in terms of a trend that you're drawing up outside the index, but sectorally something that you think is going to maybe rescue the market and move it up to the next leap from here?
So, the last 1 month has been a case where many of the underperformers have made a comeback. Now, the first underperforming sector was the private sector banking names. Few of them have started to make a comeback. The likes of, IndusInd Bank has made a comeback of almost 100-150 points from its recent swing lows. You've seen IDFC First Bank recovering, Bandhan Bank, RBL Bank. These stocks have recovered around 5% to 10% from their recent swing lows. Then you've seen the paints stocks moving up quite well, and many of these stocks, they were getting back into a breakdown kind of a mode for quite some time. So that's a good recovery for many of these names, Asian Paints, Berger Paints, etc. And now what we're seeing is the specialty chemical stocks. Many of these stocks are making a comeback. The last I had seen SRF, as well as many of the other names, they had come back towards a breakout or very close towards a breakout of their June-July swing highs, which means that we are going through a classical phase of sector rotation where the underperforming sectors are now trying to make a comeback. NBFC, the financial names, they were the huge underperformers over the last 4-5 months, and this month so far, one of the better performers from the entire NBFC pack is the likes of Bajaj Twins Finance, as well as FinServe. You've seen Shriram Finance leading the charge from the front, as well as strong breakouts from Chola Finance, etc.
Varun, want to get your thoughts in on the specialty chemical space, because like Kunal was rightly highlighting, long forgotten, or at least has been for the last year, if not more, making a comeback or attempting to. But do you see a meaningful move? Are the fundamentals back in place now or not?
So exactly, that's what we need to keep in mind. Are the fundamentals really back in it or not? So there's been a couple of start stops, if you see, in the last 6 months, that there were twice we saw a sharp rally happening and then stocks fizzling out and halting the rally. I think one has to wait and see how this plays over, because China dumping has not stopped yet. So one has to keep that in mind. So till the time that doesn't happen, stocks are already priced to perfection. I think once China stops dumping in the world, I think that's when you will start seeing some respite coming here. Till that time, I would probably stay away from more specialty names here.
taken, but UPL is actually doing quite well and has been for the last couple of days. That value unlocking that the company talked about in one of their arms is something which has got the street excited. But what's up with Prestige? I think Prestige, Brigade, these couple of names actually did raise some funds in QIP, etc. But what's the top bet within real estate, if any, Varun?
It is a top pick for us. It's clearly one of the finest names. The beauty about the company is they give a conservative guidance and they keep outperforming over it. Also, this money which comes into both Brigade and Prestige, it will help them acquire further projects and further land bank comes in, and you will have that multiplier of growth over it. So I think clearly they stand as great picks over here. One can clearly look to buy them.
Okay, so that's the latest coming in as far as this entire real estate pack is concerned. But for the markets right now, it's been fairly sideways. I'm just taking stock of what the rates are coming in from the US right now, because the pre-market rates for now are a bit sideways. So you have Dow, which is up 40 points. NASDAQ is a bit lower in the trading session. You do have oil that continues to be around that $73 per barrel, and the European markets too are pretty sideways at that. DAX being just flat and the French CAC down 0.5%. But with that, let me toss it across to Snehi to help us with the closing trades.
Well, absolutely, Anisha. Let's take a look at how we've wrapped up for the day. And if you take a look at Nifty, it's at 25,155, quite range bound. In fact, in today's trade, almost 0.2% fall coming in on that front. Sensex also largely in tandem, but comfortably above that 82,200 mark is where the Sensex is at. If you take a look at the advance decline ratio, surprisingly, it's in the favor of the advances today, but hard to tell because of the way the market has been acting rather sideways, like Anisha mentioned. If you take a look at some of the big gainers today from the Nifty 50 pack, tightened it pretty well for itself, up almost 3%. You had LTI Mindtree 1.5% higher. Wipro was among the top gainers, 1.2% higher. BPCL, ITC, Hero Motor, all of these stocks did pretty well for themselves. However, on the Nifty, what did not do well was Coal India, that was down 1.5%. You had Britannia down 1.4%. However, one of the biggest losers that was dragging Nifty today was Reliance, and a slight bit of a recovery was seen in that stock before it slipped once again on the back of that bonus announcement issue that they have done in the ratio 1:1. Reliance also down 1.2% as we come to the day's close. You had Dr. Reddy's, Cipla, M&M, all of these stocks did not do well in today's trading session. But if you take a look at the sectoral gainers and losers, media, IT, PSU Bank, metals and bank, these were some of your top sectoral gainers in today's trade. However, on the flip side, realty was languishing on almost 1% lower. That's an index that did not do well today. Nifty Energy, Auto and Pharma, all of these indices also have ended the day in the red if you take a look at that. What worked out for IT today was Coforge, LTI Mindtree, Wipro, Infosys, HCL Tech and Persistent. All of these stocks were buzzing away in today's trading session. However, Tech Mahindra and LTTS were towards the red side. And from the real estate space, you had Prestige that came out with the QIP pricing. That stock has ended by almost a cuts of 4%. You had Sobha that did not do well. DLF, Godrej Properties, Phoenix Mills, Macrotech, all of these stocks have ended the day in the red. But if you take a look at some other stocks then, on the fundraising front, you had PNB Housing that was in focus. Let's just pull up the charts for PNB Finance and PNB Housing and see how that stock has ended. Still languishing, 1.5% cut on that front. Sona BLW was in focus on the back of fundraising. Godrej Properties, the board has approved to raise 6,460 crores via debt. So that stock was also in the red today, 1.4% lower. You had GIC, General Insurance, in focus because the government is going to slightly increase the stake that they're planning to sell. So that stock also did not do pretty well, but ending rather flat. Rights, NBCC on the back of an MOU. Dilip Bilcorn was in focus on the back of a massive order win of 1,341 crore rupees coming in. So Dilip Bilcorn is a stock that did well, almost 2% higher. Singapore GRMs, however, turned negative for the first time since October of 2022. However, the impact was not seen on names like HPCL, BPCL, IOC and Chennai Petro. Largely, all of these stocks were in the green. But well, yes, that's how we are ending the day today. New listing on the bourse is also Raymond Lifestyle. It listed and then went into a lower circuit, so that was one to watch out for. And quickly, lastly, on the back of brokerage action, Zomato, Chola Finance, Uno Minda were in focus. But that's how we're wrapping up the day. Nifty around the 25,150 mark.